So after a while, you pull the curtain back and you find out that pretty much everybody's learning and whatever. And I asked, and Howard said at one point that you realize that everybody's an idiot. So I ask that you listen to me tonight like I'm an idiot. And if you put any of your money in anything that I talk about tonight, you might listen to yourself as such. So that's the disclaimer. I am not here to give investment advice, and this is truly the wild, wild west. So, and if anybody that I know comes to you with some sort of proposal, like my grandmother comes to you with her ICO that she's talking about, she wants to call it apple pie coin. The white paper's actually out. It's just her apple pie recipe. So anyway, don't take anything like this is the truth or anything else here tonight. So let me tell you a little bit about myself. I've been in telecommunications and web for a long time. And about 3 years ago, I realized that this blockchain thing was a lot more than Bitcoin. I'd heard about Bitcoin, and I was like, that's interesting, but I'm not interested in it. And then all of a sudden, Ethereum came along, and it was like, wow, this is much, much more profound. So I started looking at it as a way to be an alternative to the domain name system. So there's been a long-standing problem in the telecom industry around naming, addressing, numbering, and implicitly identity. That's my passion. That's what I'm interested in here. So started Desert Blockchain. The reason for Desert Blockchain is to build community here in Arizona. And that's pretty much it. And Jason helps, and all of you being here tonight is part of the growing community that's interested in this new realm. So let's get right into it. So consider that cryptocurrency is like the first killer application of blockchain. It's kind of like what email was to the internet. So you can tell that I might have been through this cycle before, and I have. But initially when the internet came out and email was introduced, everybody thought of email as the internet. Well, everybody pretty much thinks of blockchain and this decentralized web structure as Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. But that's just the first killer application. And cryptocurrency is huge. Don't get me wrong. This is an incredibly phenomenal innovation. But in my view, and hopefully by the time you see the end of this presentation, you will start to spark some new realms of this. Blockchain, and blockchain is a really poor term for this. It's much, much more. I like the centralized web. The centralized web and blockchain is even more profound. So cryptocurrency basically is considered digital gold, or Bitcoin. That's what we're seeing right now. And by the way, just as another part of the disclaimer, currently I hold no cryptocurrency. I know.
You sold it.
Well, I bricked my phone one night, and this is my wife, Cindy Carpenter, who's my incredible support partner. But I knocked a bottle of water over on a nightstand and bricked my phone because I didn't want to turn on the light to wake up Cindy. So that was the end of my cryptocurrency. But just as Howard said, it's a big problem. And I didn't have much. But anyway, so cryptocurrency is a big, big deal. But what we're seeing right now is just sort of a phenomenon where I don't think anybody had an idea what the appetite was for storage of value. And that's really what we're seeing. I think recently I saw a headline that Vitalik Buterin, who was the founder and inventor of Ethereum, was comparing, cryptocurrency to like the art market, because we just saw a Da Vinci sell for like $450 million. Well, I think, cryptocurrency is kind of like a really precious piece of art. And I think a lot of people are figuring out that, hey, I had this old thing in my garage, and I sold it to Salvation Army, and guess what? It's a Matisse. And that's kind of what this feels like. But what I'm really interested in is, and store of value and all that stuff is really powerful, but what I'm really interested in is finding reoccurring revenue models out of this. And so far there have been very, very few reoccurring revenue models. The biggest one so far is CryptoKitties. Who would have figured? So I think this alters our concept of money, and in my view, Jay Carpenter's view, all the blockchains, all the projects that are out there right now are prototypes. So all we've seen is really sort of like the gates open. And we've just seen the first, how appropriate. Pizza's here. First Bitcoin purchase was a pizza for 10,000 Bitcoin, which would be worth, $170 million today. So
It's nice pizza.
nice pizza. Exactly. I hope it tasted good. No anchovies. So all the blockchains out there, projects, I look at as prototypes. And I only follow basically 3 projects, which is Bitcoin, Ethereum, and something called IPFS, the Interplanetary File System. Everything else is just too much for me to wrap my head around. And 90% of my time is spent around something called IPFS, the Interplanetary File System. So this, if you haven't been to CoinMarketCap.com, this is where you can follow the, let's see if I can, I'm good enough to do this, where you can follow the, I'm going to walk over here. You can follow all the market caps of where all the cryptocurrencies are trading. So let's see. Let's pull it up. So basically, the total market cap of all the top 100 cryptocurrencies is $519 billion, which, like a year ago, year and a half, it was maybe around 9 or 10 billion. And you can go down here, you can see that Bitcoin is trading at almost $17,000. Here's their, let's see if we can pull up their, okay, so there's their price curve. It's crazy. So that's basically where you can follow along. It's like, the New York Stock Exchange of cryptocurrency. Ethereum's number 2. Let's go back to that. $670 per ether, and so on. Ripple has been crazy. It's got like a $30 billion market cap now. So anyway, and I'm going to post a link to this presentation. You can follow along on all this stuff. Any questions so far? Yes, please.
Is this being broadcast live, like a webinar stream or anything like that?
It's being live streamed. I don't know if it's being recorded.
It is live streamed.
Okay, is it being recorded as well?
No, it's not recorded, but it will be on the Periscope, so if you access the link, probably
Okay,
get it.
so you can find it through.
You can find
Find it through which website?
Periscope. Follow us on the Twitter.
Periscope.
No, yeah, on the Twitter, just follow us, PHXMOBI, then you'll find.
On the meetup, there's a link to the meetup notice.
Okay. I have a meetup on this. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
we good on time, by the way?
Yeah. We
Uh,
got pizza, but if you want
yeah.
to take a break and we'll finish up.
Yeah, let me see if I can run through this, although it's going to take about 15 minutes to build a blockchain. So this is an article that came out just recently. It says, you don't understand Bitcoin because you think money is real. Yeah. This is an awesome article. I highly recommend you take a look at it. Especially if you think that money is a zero-sum game, all of this cryptocurrency stuff starts to really be a mind-bending endeavor. So next one is, let's build a blockchain. How about that? So here's what we're going to do. We're going to build a blockchain out of the new times. Okay? And we're just going to step through this. It's going to take maybe 15, 20 minutes. And the first thing that we need is people that are willing to be nodes in our blockchain. So who's willing to be a node? Here's a node. Here's a node. Awesome. Node. Node. One node. Awesome. We've got younger people that are nodes. Who else would like to be a node? Jeff and Hawkeye. Okay, cool. Okay, so consider that, and this is an untouched issue of the New Times. It came out about 3 weeks ago. You can see the date at the top of the issue. It hasn't been modified or anything else. We're going to treat that issue like it's a block, okay? And we're going to build a block. So the way we're going to do this, and we're going to mine as well. The way we're going to do this is we're going to create block number 1. So block number 1. And we're going to put it right up here. If you can't see this, I apologize. And we're going to start with a number of 0. Okay? So this is going to be our Genesis block. All right? Now, somebody tell me, how many pages are in this New Times? You can look at the last page and then add one because the back cover doesn't. 64. 64. Okay. So we're going to add 64. And we're going to come up with 64. Okay? And for everybody that is a node, who needs a pen? I'd like you to write exactly what I'm writing. Anybody else need a pen? Would you mind giving that color? Who else needs a pen? So on your little Post-it note, yeah, one more. So on your Post-it note, please write 0 and then 64 and then total it to 64. Okay. So, pick a number between 4 and 7.
5.
5, okay. So we're going to have 5 minors. Okay. So who would like to be a minor who has a node? You're going to be a minor? Okay, go ahead and pick a ticket out of there. And then tear it apart and put the part that you don't keep in here. So tear it in half. There you go. Perfect. Okay, who else who has a node would like to be a miner? You'd like to be a miner? Okay. So we got 3 miners, and then put your get in there. There you go. Okay, 2 more miners who have nodes. Okay. Take it out of there. Okay, 1 more miner. Jeff. Okay. All right, so we have 5 miners out of our 10 nodes. And let's see, did I get your ticket? Yeah, we've got 5 tickets. Okay, let's see. Would you mind picking a ticket? Okay, what's the number?
The whole number?
No, just the last 2 digits.
Last 2 digits, 93.
93. Which minor is 93?
The winner.
Okay, great. Put that in there. Thank you. Okay, Jeff. I'm pick out 1 page out of the issue and rip it out. Just doesn't matter which page. And by the way, we'll go ahead and tell everybody which page it is.
It's like
39 and 40? Is that what it is? What are the 2 numbers?
Yes.
39 and 40. Very good. You're our first miner, and you get a mining reward. Okay. And and keep that page, but just set it aside. Okay. So we have 39, and you should do this on and put a bracket around it, and 40. Okay. And we're going to create. These are like the transactions. So, and what we're actually doing is creating something called a Merkle tree, which is a key part of a blockchain. Okay. So, and we're going to calculate a hash, which is a key part. Oops. Key part of this whole thing coming together. So we're going to put page 40 up here, and we're going to put page 39 feeding into this block, block number 1. Okay? If you can't see that, I apologize. So, what we're going to do is we're going to calculate the hash of block number 1, which I'm doing this on the phone because I don't want to make a mistake. So we got 64. 64 minus 39 equals 25 minus 40 equals 15. So the hash for block number 1 is minus 15. Okay? Whoops. And what we're doing is we're stepping through sort of a simplified process of exactly how a blockchain works. Okay. And we're going to put minus 15 is our hash. Okay. So that goes here. And that's going to be like kind of carrying forward. And now we're going to mine our second block. which is the next week's new times. Okay? And you can, anybody could check that out, see that, hey, it's a sequential, this is the next week's new times, no doubt about it. We're going to assume it's unaltered. Everybody who's a node, I'm going to let you guys just pass these out among yourselves. So everybody who's a node should grab one of these new times. And then we're going to create block number 2. So this is block number 2. Okay, so does every node have a... Yeah. Can I finish this? Can I finish this up?
Sure, yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
It won't take very long. So we now need to mine block number 2. Will you pick a ticket?
I got 9-3.
9-3. Who's 9-3? Go ahead and put that back in. You're 9-3 again?
Again?
I'm making money.
Wow.
All right.
You should go buy some Bitcoins.
So
Go to Vegas.
in the second issue, pick a page and rip it out and tell everybody which page it is.
I can see it. 65, 66.
65, 66. You get the mining reward.
Hey. Go buy another basics.
So we're going to carry our hash forward. Minus 15. And how many pages are in that? Total pages? 64? 72.
72.
72.
72. Okay. So 72. And then we're going to. It was 60. What was it again?
65.
65 and 6.
65 and 66. 66. Okay, so that. Will somebody calculate that for me?
131, sir.
What is this all total? Okay, I'll do it. So,
74.
negative 74.
Should be 3.
Does everybody agree on that? Negative 74.
Yes.
Okay, so that's going to be the hash for block number 3. And we want to show the transactions that constitute that block, which is minus 65 and minus 66. Now you might notice that what we've done is we've taken actual numeric numbers and we've kind of created a code. Because even though these look like numeric numbers, these page numbers are meaningless in terms of an actual number. So we've created this code, and you can see that if anything changed, if somebody had ripped out pages 29 and 28, this whole thing would change. Does that make sense? And that's part of the magic, and I'm going to show you that in another demonstration here after we break. putting up this. Turn into that. This goes into this. And this is a troublemaker. So we're going to do that. So let me point out a couple dynamics before we create the last and final block. And the dynamics are this. What's just happened here is we have come to community consensus without any sort of central authority. We started with something that came from a central authority, the New Times. And by ripping out the pages, which creates a very difficult thing to change, all of a sudden we're creating, as a community, our version of content that we might not even call the New Times anymore. Okay? So we're actually building a blockchain based upon community consensus. We have a competition going on because the miners would all like to be the winning ticket holder because there's a financial reward. And right now, the reward every 10 minutes for Bitcoin is like, what, $150,000? Something like that. There's crazy amounts of resources that are going into creating this distributed, decentralized community consensus. So, I'm kind of moving along quickly. We'll build our last block, and then we can break for pizza, and then okay, great.
Where did the 72 come from?
The 72 is the total number of pages in the second block. Okay, and everybody can verify that. So that's completely auditable by anybody in this room. And, by the way, even though we've got 10 nodes and 5 miners, I assert that we're all creating this and we're all impacted by this. Because we're all looking at what's going on, we can validate, we can verify what's going on. And that price signaling that we saw in the coin market cap, everybody's watching that. So even though I don't hold crypto, I'm watching those prices, and that impacts my incentive to participate in this. And again, it's a permissionless construct. Everybody's volunteering. This is a very watered down version of building a blockchain, but nobody has to keep playing. Jeff could retire now. He's got $10. So anyway. There's a lot more I could say about that. Let's go ahead and create the last block, just to kind of finish it off. So, Sarah, would you mind picking?
93.
993.
993? Well, no, this is actually awesome. It is. Yeah, it's 93. So this is perfect.
Seriously, you're going
I was going to move my system to Iceland.
Well, so this is perfect because it shows what happens when mining power gets centralized. And this is exactly what's happened. And, the way I would have changed it is to have people be able to buy tickets, like for 25 cents or whatever, and increase their odds of being selected as a miner. But this just has kind of turned out. But this is showing part of the concern around Bitcoin is that there's centralized mining going on. So, Jeff, you have the final block. You get to determine the block by picking a page and ripping it out.
Let's go 3 and 4. Keep it that simple.
Okay, so what's the total number of pages in that?
64.
So we carry our hash forward 74, and then 64 pages are the total, right? And then we're going to 3 and 4.
3 and 4.
Okay, 3 and 4. So what's our minus what?
9.
Minus 9?
Now, isn't 74 negative?
What is it?
74 is negative.
Oh,
Negative 74.
Minus 17.
Minus 17.
oh, 1 second.
Okay, minus 17. Okay. So this is block number 3. I'm sorry.
No, he's following the map.
Okay, good. So this constitutes block number 3, and our transactions feeding into block number 3 are minus 3 and minus 4. Okay. And we have this. And that. And that. So all right. Congratulations, we have created a blockchain out of new times issues, and including the hashing function, including the mining function, and we can just continue onward like that. And the other thing to keep in mind is that this is very much like freedom of the press, in that we could have done this with Scottsdale Magazine, the Arizona Republic. So the field is wide open. There is no one blockchain. Anybody is capable of starting their own blockchain. And after we have some pizza, I'm going to show you how you can actually program in JavaScript in about 15 minutes your own blockchain. And we've got one question. Yes?
Yes, Jeff, who was a miner, it would appear that he's quite lucky. And are you suggesting that miners that are concentrated are lucky?
No, I'm suggesting that what has happened that was kind of against the premise of the whole initial construct that was released in like 2008, 2009, it was designed so that there wouldn't be a concentration of mining. But what's happened in reality is there is a concentration in mining. Because people, in order to be a miner and play the game and be eligible for the dollar reward, you have to expend electricity. And what's happened is there's been this huge concentration of mining in China because people are able to access electricity for next to nothing. But in addition, they've also spent millions, in fact hundreds of millions, to create the largest ability to compute in the world. The Bitcoin mining computation power exceeds Google, Amazon, everybody by many, many fold. But the computation only does one particular thing really, really well, which is it runs this mathematical puzzle, which I'll show you how that works after we have some pizza. And it's insane, the computational war that's happened out of this competition.
I think we estimated.
Sure.
So just to give an example, like people are building supercomputer at the desktop. They are building custom rigs for mining. And just to give an example, like a GPU, they use the graphics card. And right now, the graphics cards, some of the graphics cards, they can operate at 20 gigaflops. Means 20 giga floating operations per second, which is like a supercomputing calculation formula. That's the speed. And imagine if a guy building a rig with like 4 graphics cards, so you multiply it to 4, and you multiply that with like 16-core Intel Core chip. So that's how much processing you're doing, like on a table, which is because the GPUs, what they are good at churning the numbers, and they marry that with the traditional your 4-core or laptop CPUs, and that's why you are getting exponential calculation method. And these blockchains and all this coding is done to optimize that code, and this is all custom. You can't go and buy on Amazon or anyone. People are building these custom rigs, and because they're running so fast, it's generating so much of heat. They're trying to control the voltage. They're trying to control the heat dissipation and rooms and everything. There's a big on this. You guys can check on YouTube or anything,
Yeah, the competitive edge is actually in the design of the building. It's not even at the processor level. It's how efficiently can they dissipate heat and so forth. So anyway, it's amazing. So let's see, it's 8:09 right now. Is it okay if they get pizza and then come back to their seats?
Yeah.
And then we'll yeah, if you want to. Yeah, if you want to. That's creative. So. So if we could come back at like 8:15, we'll be able to wrap it up in 15 minutes. You can keep it if you want.
His Twitter handle. Yeah, you can reach him on Twitter.
Okay. Well, I wanted to that would be
Is he fine with that? You're giving
He
him
said,
feedback?
yeah, before he left, he's like, can you,
Okay, yeah. I'm just checking with you.
we're working really hard. Howard? Howard at Homeroom.com?
Right now we're working.
Thank you for putting this together.
So we're looking at
And it's on the street called Madison.
and in doing so, we want to make sure
That simply represents like
The next thing I'm going to show you will go to projects. One of them is a decentralized marketplace for carbon renewable trading. So kind of the decentralized suite of smart contracts that comes with the Ethereum blockchain that allows people who want to offset their carbon.
they're not elected.
So I'm really pretty hard on building that.
That makes sense.
In addition,
He's got it on the end.
enterprise companies who have existing applications to the one here, it's called crypto house. And then the one
And
Oh, yeah.
So I'm going to involve probably the next portion, and I'm going to go into after hours. So I do that. passive, like all this but then I got into dive into Ethereum about 2 years ago now. I haven't stopped
That's Howard. I don't know.
You're one of the organizers. So Howard, hold on, Howard.
Howard has on the website Meetup, we put his Twitter.
Okay.
Just message him, he responds.
What about it?
Email.
I thought it said Howard.
There's like
Yes, .com, that's all. It's simple, right? Yeah.
I'm going to show
Sure.
Time to enter.
In terms of like buying this market.
Thank you very much, Stephen.
Yeah. I think it's a fantastic time to start building something. I really think that the only way forward, I think most, if anybody's trying to start a new initiative and they're going down the centralized route, they're going to get left in the dust and they're just getting interested in so I really think there's going to be we're kind of on a verge of seeing exactly pop up whatever.
Oh, cool. Well, Jason is part of the team.
But I think the market,
Now that
It's the 27th. Okay, let's go ahead and get started again so we can. So what we just did was a very simplified example, demonstration of creating a blockchain. What's that? So if everybody can take a seat after you've gotten some pizza, and we'll wrap this up in a few minutes. Okay. Karen, anyway, so let's go ahead and get started again. Hopefully everybody's got some pizza. Feel free, if you want to get seconds or whatever, go for it. But I'd like to go through this because I'd really like to show you guys how to code a blockchain. Yeah. Oh, wow. So this is a site I would highly recommend you go to. And I titled it, Let's Fool a Blockchain. And I want to demonstrate the power of the blockchain in terms of keeping track of what is so. And so this is what we did, what we were kind of doing in a very rough and simplified way. We were creating what's called a hash, which is like this code that is determined based upon the content that's in the block. So let's assume this is a block, and let's go over here, and let's say Jeff owes Jay a slice of pizza. Okay, and we'll put an exclamation mark in there. And I don't know if you noticed it, but see this big long chain down here? That's called a hash. That's a SHA-256 hash. And watch this. If we so much as move one item in that sentence, and that sentence could be a financial transaction, all of a sudden the hash completely changed. Okay? So you can see that's what it was before. Look at the front of the hash, it's 4484. And then when I take away that exclamation mark, it completely changes the hash. So imagine if you had the entire Library of Congress in a blockchain like this. And so much as one period changed to a comma, the hash would change for the entire Library of Congress. You could tell via this hashing mechanism that somewhere within the millions and millions of lines of text for the Library of Congress that something had changed. And you would see something that's completely different. So that's why we did this calculation, because we were carrying forward a hash to create our blockchain. 747474, 151515. This is a construct where at a glance we can determine the integrity of a massive amount of data. And that's part of the power of the blockchain. So again, I'm going to post this presentation, and it's really fun to play around with this this website, and it's open source, so you can actually go in and see what the code is. But part of it being open source highlights the transparency that's involved here. We are actually coordinating data and consensus and money as a community. That to me is really, really powerful. And when that sunk in, all of a sudden it was like, this is amazing. It's, some people call it like a hive. So all of a sudden people in communities and around the world can operate like a hive. And by the way, it's based upon competition, and it's based upon an assumption of distrust versus trust. So when we're dealing with a bank or a government, we're placing our trust in that centralized institution. We're hoping that everybody's acting honestly and whatever. This is completely different. Everybody in the Bitcoin community effectively distrusts each other. They are certain that, if Jeff came back in the room, he would take the $15 and maybe more. Okay? And the other remarkable thing about it is people that would, here he comes. Good thing he didn't hear that. Imagine this. People are coming to consensus around the world every 10 minutes where outside of that context, they might be mortal enemies. That's amazing to me. So, anyway, you can play around with this. I recommend you do that. Okay, here is a video that you can watch. It's about 14 minutes. And basically in, I think, 60, 70 lines of code, maybe less, you can build your own blockchain using JavaScript. It's very simplified. It's very stripped down. And here is the GitHub page. this is part one, where you simply build a blockchain, and then part two he has is showing building proof of work into this blockchain. So I won't go into that, but I think it's absolutely awesome. Okay, this is what I'd like to show you as an example, because we hear a lot about blockchain, so what? What's it really good for? So let's take a look at this. This is about a 4-minute video, and bear with me just a minute.
Lease application at Consensus in New York. This application allowed consumers to lease a vehicle from a car owner. Hello again from Open Innovations. We're excited to show you at Money 2020 some of the things we've been working on with Toyota Research Institute. Earlier this year, we debuted our proof of concept, blockchain-enabled peer-to-peer car lease application at Consensus in New York. This application allowed consumers to lease a vehicle from a car owner using a smart contract on the Ethereum blockchain, file storage on IPFS, and a mobile application to lease and control access to the vehicle. Prior to our car lease model, we developed a blockchain-powered automated toll road system with connected cars. This project won us the top honors among the entire world at the UAE International Blockchain Hackathon. These applications allow for instantaneous remittance between the transacting parties. They do this without the need for payment processors by using logic coded to a smart contract. The hyper-secure blockchain-based IoT controls add a level of security not currently available on the consumer market, all while reducing or eliminating the need for server infrastructure. Open Innovations wants to give you a glimpse into the mobility future we envision and show why this is important to the payments and financial services industry. We use the blockchain for application logic and data storage, replacing traditional server infrastructure. Here we use the blockchain to store vehicle identity along with GPS. Now we add road and mapping data and allow trusted entities to update this decentralized data layer. Smart road sensors can also feed this database. This allows for a complete view of all vehicles and infrastructure with current construction and traffic conditions while allowing third-party applications to be built on top of this data. Let's amend that vehicle data for lease or ride-sharing services. This now allows consumer mobile apps for ride-sharing or leasing using this blockchain services layer. In a ride-share or lease transaction, things get very interesting. Using blockchain technology, instant value transfer and microtransactions are now possible. Within one smart contract transaction is instant remittance to several parties, including the vehicle owner and driver, insurance provider, toll road authority, and road tax entity. Why is this valuable? The automobile owner and driver receive guaranteed and instantaneous payment of funds. Microinsurance policies for each ride or lease transaction can be paid to an escrow contract, then remitted to the insurance provider once the ride is complete, with the balance of that escrow going to the rider or lessee. We can use an escrow contract for autonomous toll payments and even eliminate toll gates from the toll road infrastructure, as we can prove the location of the vehicle using GPS. We can even have smart toll road infrastructure where roads are only charged during peak hours. As consumer behavior moves away from purchasing fuel and favoring pay-per-ride mobility over vehicle ownership, road and infrastructure authorities will face a shortfall of tax revenue that currently funds the construction and maintenance of roads. Included in the mobility transaction is a usage-based tax to replace this lost revenue, even short trips where a fraction of a penny is needed for taxation. All of these parties receive the benefits of instantaneous remittance, all included in a single transaction user experience, all without the need for payment processing intermediaries. Let's go further. With this blockchain platform in an autonomous driving world, we get to go beyond rider mobility into other applications. Solar energy production is highest when the sun is shining the most. That's typically in the middle of the day. Energy demand typically spikes in the morning and then again in the evening, time that solar energy production is weakest. During low mobility demand times, automated vehicles can store solar energy during peak production times, then deliver that energy when and where it is needed. Also, since we have the automobiles equipped with 5G connectivity, we can provide a self-healing mesh network across large areas, as well as partitioned consumer Wi-Fi service, all while the vehicles receive microtransaction reimbursements for sharing their internet connection. Thank you for your time, and we hope you enjoyed our version of the blockchain-powered vehicle future. For more information, please visit us at oakeninnovations.com and blockchain-mobility.org.
Okay, so what did we just see? Because there was a lot going on there. Here's what we just saw. We just saw a melting together of all of these items that up until this point have been separate realms. We saw transportation, blockchain, autonomous vehicles, eventually communications, finance, taxation, insurance, sharing economy. All of these things are merging together. So a little bit earlier we were talking about the difference between ICOs and IPOs and the difference between a token and a stock. It's becoming almost impossible to separate the two. Well, imagine all of this blending together. That's what's on the table. So
You just said connection off.
there we go. So this is an article that goes into blockchain basically in a little more depth as sort of an introduction. It's much longer than this. I'm not going to go into that. That's my contact information, and basically I'll open it up for questions at this point. Jeff?
Who validates a transaction for, I guess, semi-private blockchains?
That's usually done on a round robin or some sort of group, trusted group validators for private blockchains. And, then it calls into question, is that really a blockchain? And that's an issue. But when you get into private blockchains at this point, it starts to look a lot like a traditional database in my view. Yes?
We were just actually discussing like fees, like the nodes and the miners and everything like this, more specifically for Bitcoin. And he was saying that he just paid 15% or something like that to transfer money. And I asked if it's a larger amount, is it still a percentage, or is it that one amount for is it irrelevant the amount on there? Because
you're asking the wrong person.
But it starts to get to 15%. Doesn't the success of the blockchain almost render them useless?
So Bitcoin was originally designed to be like a transaction and currency, and it's a store of value. That's why it's labeled as digital gold. People were buying coffee and whatever, and now and I'm not a crypto trader or anything else, but now the fees have gotten so high. But what I don't think anybody really appreciated was the need to have a store of value like this is enormous. And there are significant advantages to this over gold or diamonds or anything else. Imagine you are the father of a family, and you're about to put your family in a boat to cross the Mediterranean to try to get to Turkey or whatever. Do you want a bag of gold over your shoulder? Or do you want some little cryptographic key in your head or wherever that you can reproduce on the other side and store and basically transport your wealth along with hopefully your family? That's what's going on.
I guess my question was, though, is like with this year with Bitcoin, as it gets more successful, it gets bogged down, the fees get crazy. Is that a problem with every blockchain, that the more successful it gets, the more bogged down it'll get and it becomes a victim of its own success?
They're all prototypes. So Bitcoin, the genius behind Bitcoin was in consensus. The genius behind Ethereum is in distributed world computing. Neither one is really a scalable model. And the fees have just sort of organically exploded. And again, there's no central authority that's determining the fees or whatever. It's all market driven, if that makes sense. And part of our opportunity set here in Phoenix, and for that matter around the world, is to usher in and create and innovate around this construct and create whatever's next. What will scale? What can people use in a human-friendly manner? I mean, Howard talked about losing your private keys. Your cryptocurrency is gone. There is no customer service number. You're done. So there's a whole human-friendly realm to create around this. If Jay has cryptocurrency and something happens to Jay on the way home, how does Mrs. Carpenter restore that? That's a big problem. But even with all those problems, even with the high fees, for apparently a large portion of the world, keeping their value in this is far superior to their other alternatives. That's why we're seeing Bitcoin at $17,000 a Bitcoin. Does that make sense? So it's a little bit beyond 8:30. I hope this opened up some new dimensions for you around this whole construct. And the best way to join in is to become a member of Desert Blockchain on Meetup, and we send out announcements and things like that. We meet every month on the last Wednesday of the month for there's a social time presentation and then more social. So it's free to join. Whatever, this is a labor of love, basically. So one last question. Yes. My blockchain is falling apart.
What protocol?
Our blockchain is falling apart.
I didn't get what protocol it is using to replicate this transaction between parties.
There's a whole networking protocol behind each construct, and all of that's under development. Bitcoin uses RPCs, remote procedure calls, where they're all talking together. And I'm not a networking guru or anything else. Chris Matthew, who's with us tonight, who runs the IoT meetup, is creating a really, really powerful new project called computes.io. I highly, highly recommend everybody take a look at it. A few of us are really excited about the potential for that, for like peer-to-peer computing. And there's starting to be a local community of people that are not only interested but also have the technical talent to push this forward. We're hoping to have a hackathon pretty soon for people that do know how to code, that have some sort of technical skill, and we'll be announcing that at our next session on the 27th. So, you have any questions? Is this what you were interested in?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Big round of applause to
And then we have a raffle. So we should
Another raffle.
Yeah, we'll probably do it using your blockchain.
That's right.
probably.
Yeah, maybe you
And
can
pick the
just-
winner, Strong.
Okay. Do you guys have tickets or anything, or do you want to?
We have tickets,
Yeah.
but if
Do
you
you
want to do it
wanna?
faster with
Or maybe you ask the question and whoever answers it. Not the 93.
No.
apparently 93 is prime, right?
Why don't you ask him a question? So.
From the
I seem to be jinxed.
So I'll ask you guys one question. So we've all seen the rise of the price, right? But then we've also been hearing about how much energy is being consumed to keep this whole network alive. I don't know what your guys' thoughts are on how we're going to be polluting the environment or basically creating more global warming because of technologies like this.
Yeah, but you don't have to drive to the bank to get your money.
That's true.
That whole thing with the energy and all the computing power, it's because of the consensus algorithm they happen to choose for Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And that's part of where Jay was going. It's part of what we need to have to change.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think Ethereum probably is using a better algorithm, and you don't need
Yeah.
GPUs and things like that. Or Litecoin was the one
So,
that I heard.
so who can name an alternative algorithm to proof of work? Go ahead.
Proof of stake.
That's right. Okay. Awesome. There you go. All right. Thank you very much. Is there anything else?
Yeah, I have something for you. Thank you for coming out.
Thank you.
And I really enjoyed the presentation. You know, you explained the numbers. That's really workshop kind. Thank you so
Good.
much.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming.